Hello, friends.
Hi, everyone. Welcome.
Welcome. We are coming to you today from Campbellville, Ontario, Happily Ever After Farm
Happy
Sanctuary.
Monday, everyone.
Happy Monday. I am
Andrea.
I am Kevin. I'm the facilities manager.
And I'm Andrea, the resident healthcare manager, and we're having a special program for you here today.
A special Barnside chat. Yeah, we have our compassion fatigue specialist, Julie Squires, joining us. She's going to talk a lot about just how to deal with grief and all of the loss that we've had throughout this year. It's been a very tough year. So let me just bring Julie in here.
Into the chat.
Yeah.
Julie's waiting. Hi, Julie.
Hey, Julie.
Can you hear us?
Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, amazing.
That's
All right. Perfect. Thank you so much for having me.
Hi, so this is Julie. She's going to spend some time with everybody. We'll be collecting questions. So if people do have questions, if you feel comfortable putting in the comments, please go ahead and do that, because at some point we will break away and do some questions for Julie, if there are some. Otherwise, Julie's just going to take the lead on this one.
Yeah, I'm so ready. Ready.
We'll pass it off to Julie.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Julie.
Thank you. I think everybody's tuned in. I see some comments.
Kevin,
Okay.
Andrea, thank you.
See you in a minute.
Well, okay. I appreciate the opportunity to sort of bust into Barnside chat, but this is really important that we're here to talk and we're here to gather in a safe place to talk about grief and all that not only Heaths has been experiencing, not only the loss of Esther, what the world is experiencing. So I just feel so deeply honored to be with you. So my thanks first and foremost go to Kevin and Andrea for, again, giving me their spot today, but also to Emily Lewis for really just being aware that the community needed a space and some time just to talk about grief and all the loss that we are all feeling. So I know for so many of us, it's been a really difficult past. What has it been? 5 days, I guess, since we have lost the magnanimous Esther the Wonder Pig, Piggy Princess, naughty daughter, queen of cupcakes, fashion diva, all of the roles that she played. And my absolute deepest condolences first go to her dads, Derek and Steve. And I can't even imagine what it feels like to be them right now. And my deepest condolences also go to the entire Heath staff, because as Andrea and Kevin were just alluding to, they too are hurting, not only for the loss of Esther, but also all the other losses that they have experienced this year. And I actually have a list of those losses: Wilma, Moby, Rose, Shirley, Gregory, Kamala, Terry, Donna, Dan, Yami, Doug, Moose, Gladys, Sean, and Cornelius, aka Corno. So lastly, my most heartfelt condolences to the rest of us from all over the world, wherever you may be joining this live, or maybe you're going to watch the replay, because we all feel as though we have lost members of our family, by whether that was the loss of Esther, whether that's the loss of a resident at Heaths. And community What we're doing right here is vital to our well-being. If you think about it, all cultures have always gathered in order to grieve. Think about that. Whatever your ancestry is, look at cultures all over the world. There is a reason why we come together to grieve, whether that's funerals, rituals, memorials. It's because there is something powerful and we need each other. And that doesn't mean that we need to, or that we don't need to also go off on our own sometimes and grieve, but we also need each other. And this is really a time to come together. And I think that for each of us, this is a real gift. And here's a great example of where social media is miraculous. Not only has it brought us Esther, not only has it brought us all the residents at Heaths, it's also brought us together like this right now. So you heard a little bit about me. I'm Julie Squires. I'm a certified compassion fatigue specialist. I'm a grief educator. I'm a life coach. I work exclusively with humans who work with animals. And I've had the pleasure of supporting the amazing staff and the volunteers that make Heaths such a wonderful place for all of the residents that call it home. And I too have worked with animals. I worked with animals starting with wildlife rehabilitation. I spent many years in small animal veterinary practice. And I also was a humane educator at a farmed animal sanctuary in New York's Hudson Valley, where I live. And I'll tell you this, working with animals has been one of the greatest blessings of my life. And the variety of species that most of us work with, live with, and love don't live that long. Unless you work with reptiles like tortoises or elephants, let's face it, these animals that we love and work with or bring into our homes or form bonds and relationships with, they don't live that long. And we experience a lot of loss because of that. So what is grief? Let's start from the beginning. Grief is our natural reaction to any kind of loss, not just death. Although here today we are talking about grief as associated to the loss of life, but grief is our natural reaction to any type of loss. Could be loss of relationship, loss of freedoms, loss of health, etc., etc. And what I have come to realize is that because of death, we have the ability to learn an awful lot about life. Now, a little personal story here. In April of 2020, my mother, super vibrant, 77-year-old, larger than life woman, lit up the room, suffered a massive heart attack. And the doctors were able to go in and unclog her coronary artery that was blocked. It's a major artery. It's one that feeds the muscle of the heart. But she was put on life support because all of her organs started to fail. And 3 days later, my brother and I had to make the decision of ending life support. And I will tell you, you probably are thinking to yourself, well, geez, that probably sounds like the hardest decision anyone ever has to make for a loved one. And we can think about this as it relates to animals too, right? And it is a hard decision. But in this particular scenario, I have to tell you, it was not a hard decision because of what I've experienced and learned from animals. Because of my past working in veterinary medicine, I am not a stranger to euthanasia. And that prepared me for making the decision that ultimately had to be made and to also be present as my mother took her final breaths. And as death is brutal, it also is such an honor to be present for our loved ones if we can when they leave this world. And here's what I know about grief. It reminds us of who we love. Now, this becomes challenging because if you look around in the world that we live in, for all intents and purposes, we live in a very grief illiterate world. We are uncomfortable often with grief. We're uncomfortable with our own grief. We're uncomfortable with other people's grief, which is why we're always trying to find the right thing to say to people, right? And we're always trying to find a bright light. Yeah, but she lived 77 years, or yeah, but this animal lived in sanctuary. Yeah, but Esther had the best life of any pig. And while all those things may be true, there's that you can see what happening there. We're trying to smooth over the pain. We're trying to prevent the hurt. And there are no right words. So I want to alleviate you from believing, first of all, that there are right words to be said. There aren't. When people are grieving, and you know this when you've been grieving like you may be right now, that there's nothing anyone can say to you that makes it better. However, what does make it better is just being present with one another. The one thing that I have learned through losing my mom is just how having someone just to sit with you makes things so much better. And they don't have to say anything. In our grief illiterate world, you'll notice that we want to hurry people through grief. We want to hurry through our own grief, and we also want to hurry other people through it. But yet, that's not the way grief works. There's no right way to do grief, and there's no wrong way to do grief. Some of us may lay in bed for days and days and days and cry. Some of us may throw ourselves into our work. Some of us may get busy with memorials and rituals and dealing with our beloved's possessions. And there's use in all of that. Because what the grief models actually teach us is that there is a time for grieving and there is a time for restoration. There is a time for grieving and there is a time to pay our mortgage, pay our phone bill. And that is the natural order of grief, that we step into it and then we step out of it for a moment or two. And we try to get a break from it because it can be too encompassing. We're not supposed to be in grief all of the time. And that can feel very disconcerting because sometimes all of a sudden you'll catch yourself and you'll be like, wait a minute, I haven't cried in the last 15 minutes. Or, wow, I actually found myself laughing. What is wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with you. You're just stepping into grief and you're stepping out of grief. And grief is brutal. There's no question about it. But I want to suggest for your consideration that we are all built for it. Every single one of us comes from a very long line of grieving ancestors. Isn't that amazing to think about? And if you allow it, grief can actually take you on a journey to get to know yourself better and to love yourself better. And all you have to do is one single thing. The one single thing is sometimes the hardest thing to do, and that is to keep your heart open. Because I think there's this natural propensity when we lose someone we love, we want to close our hearts down because we never want to feel this pain again. But my friends, it's not the love that hurts. It's the loss that hurts. I want you to keep your heart open. I want you to keep loving again and again and again. And I know that many of you are here because you're experiencing grief over the loss of sweet Esther. And I so want to honor that. She was larger than life. She likely changed the way you look at farmed animals. She may have also changed the way you live and the way you eat. And I know that she brought endless moments of joy to your life. And I can speak for myself that when life has gotten heavy in the past 11 years, when times have been tough, when I've been struggling, just that simple scrolling through your Facebook feed and to see an image of this beautiful being getting into some shenanigans, whether that was getting into trouble in the kitchen. There was a lot of stuff happening in that kitchen, or flopping down in her pool and having, essentially a tidal wave come out the other side, or inhaling cupcakes, or running around the farm with branches in her mouth, right? That those moments made our life better. Those moments made our life better. And then because of her, Heaps was born. And because of her, you may have started to think differently about species like chickens and turkeys and goats and cows. But the reality of sanctuary life is that it's about loss and subsequent grief. And there are some things about grief that I want to share with you, especially as it relates to the loss of animals. So there's a type of grief called disenfranchised grief. Disenfranchised grief is grief that we feel like we are not allowed to experience. We feel as though maybe society doesn't acknowledge as legitimate grieving for animals sometimes, or grieving for, even can sometimes, it's not just about animals, we can experience disenfranchised grief about even a celebrity, someone that we didn't even know. Society may tell us the message of, oh, well, like, why are you upset about that? You didn't even know the person. But disenfranchised grief is legitimate grief. And you may be feeling that for Esther right now. You may have never met her, but yet you're feeling so devastated. And you think, wow, I don't think I'm supposed to be feeling this because I never met her. Well, guess what? Doesn't matter. Or you may feel as though someone has sort of tried to illegitimize your experience of losing an animal. I've heard this many times in the years I've been on the planet. Oh, well, it was just an animal. It wasn't like it was a member of your family. Like, people have literally said that. And I feel such pity for people who say things like that, because clearly they don't understand the bond that we can share with animals, whether we've met them or not. So I want to honor the fact that wherever you are in this, if you felt a little bit like, wow, yeah, this is really upsetting me, or the loss of Corno recently, and um, how you're experiencing all the different losses, even of the residents of Heaths, it's like, it is real. What you're feeling is real. And our grief is unique. So think about that for a second. Our grief is unique, and here's the reason why. Our grief is unique because our relationships are unique. Even Derek and Steve's grief is not the same because their relationship with Esther was different and unique. The same goes for the residents of Heaths. All the animal caretakers and the volunteers have had different relationships with those that they have lost. So they will all be grieving uniquely. And another thing I want to offer you as it relates to grief is that sometimes grief triggers some of our old wounds. Sometimes it triggers grief that we maybe have not processed in the past. And you may have noticed that. May have noticed that all of a sudden you feel a little stirred up by some, and you're thinking about some past losses, animals in your life, humans in your life. Or maybe you're noticing that you're a little bit more sensitive to past or even current world events. So here's what I want you to know. I want you to know that our grief doesn't get smaller, but we get bigger. As my teacher, and you may know him, the world-renowned grief expert, David Kessler, he says this. He says, grief is for the living. It is our process of remembering those that we have lost and restoring ourselves. And there is no place where the grief just ends. There's no delineation where grief began and grief ends. It doesn't just end. What's actually happening is that we are, from the very beginning, we are in the process of what's called integrating the loss. We are forever connected to those that we have lost and who we have loved. And we don't just leave them behind. What we do instead is we carry them forward with us. And in doing so, we choose meaning for their life. So I want you to think about what it means to perhaps find meaning for you about Esther, Corno, Dan, Rose, Shirley, Gregory, all of them, or even your own personal pets or loved ones. What finding meaning looks like is perhaps having gratitude for having had them in your life in whatever way, shape, or form, or finding a way to honor them. It was interesting, right before we got on live, I get some text messages as part of um, a grief support that I subscribe to, and the message came over, and it said about consider writing a toast or a memorial in tribute of your loved one and sharing it with everyone that you know. And I thought, oh, that's a beautiful thing to be able to do. Find a way for you to honor Esther, Porno, Shirley, Sean, whoever it may be that you're feeling heavy-hearted about. Another way to find meaning is to feel changed by having known them. Think about how you have changed having known these beautiful beings. And also, you can recognize the value of life and use that as some sort of a launching point for something in your life. Maybe being more kind, more compassionate, more loving. So, one of the things that I want to do before we end here is I want to just read you a short poem. And I want to offer, if it feels right to you, one of the many things that I do is grief can be very dysregulating to our nervous system. One of the ways that I like to regulate my nervous system is I place my hand over my heart. And I like to close my eyes if I'm in a place where I can do that. And sometimes I say to myself, you are safe. And I feel safe in assuming that if you are with me right here live or watching the replay, that you too are safe, empirically safe. So I want to invite you to place your hand over your heart and close your eyes for a moment as I read this poem, and just let the words do whatever the words do. Let them softly kind of move over your heart and provide some healing in a difficult time. So this poem is by one of my favorite poets, John Rodell, and says this: grief is proof of love. Grief is proof that we have souls. Grief is proof that life is precious. I'm glad it hurts because it means that we matter to one another. Every tear of loss that we shed carries with it the DNA of the relationship, of the love, of the story that two once shared. Someday I want my heart to be full of potholes and divots. They will tell the story of a heart that was willing to be hurt. Leaving our hearts vulnerable is an incredible act of courage. I want more of that kind of courage. Grief is proof of love. Grief is proof of the soul. Grief is proof that love is precious. And so, my friends, in this way, so are the lives of our beloved friends, Wilma, Moby, Rose, Shirley, Gregory, Kamala, Terry, Donna, Dan, Yami, Doug, Moose, Gladys, Sean, Corno, and Esther. And they live on because we are changed by those we have loved. We are changed by those we have lost. Please keep your heart open. Be willing to love. Be willing to hurt. It means that they mattered. So, in a way that feels right to me, I want to send a final, I guess, goodbye of namaste. Okay. Let me see if there's any questions, anything I can answer.
Julie, thank you so much.
Thank you. That was amazing.
That was beautiful.
Read the first one.
Oh, I knew this was going to be an emotional afternoon, but
Yeah.
after reading all these comments down below, it's too much. Well, we have a question from Rosie on behalf of her students. She's wondering, how can we accept that she is gone, she being Esther?
How can we accept that? And what a beautiful question that is, because it's demonstrating the difficulty that first of all, our brain actually has. There's actually something called grief brain. Our brains are all trying to make sense of this, and it's a reorganization. Our brain literally has to reorganize itself to a new reality that it didn't know before. And I will tell you that losses can often they're very synonymous to almost like a concussion. Like our brain literally has to reassemble itself. And so how do we accept it? We literally allow ourselves just each and every day to keep living our lives, to keep grieving fully and living fully. And eventually our brain starts to make sense of this reality. I will tell you, for 18, 19 months after my mom died, I woke up every morning and I would say to my husband, did that really happen? Like,
Wow.
that's how long? Yeah. Yeah. and some days I still go, is this really, where is she?
I loved your
Yeah.
comment earlier about that as a technical person, that we're just in the process of integrating it into our lives.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And that it takes time. There's no timeline. I don't have a specific prescription for time. But that is the natural process, right? And yes, our brain is really, really trying to make sense of something that, first of all, is hard for it, because it's where we are trying to assemble now a whole new reality.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love, it's a beautiful question. Thank you for that one.
We had one from Patty. She said, "Hello, Julie. Is it normal to feel guilty when you eat when grieving?"
Well, I think it's natural to feel guilty when we do anything while grieving,
Mm-hmm.
laughing, smiling, paying the bills, eating, drinking, driving the car, pumping the gas, loving. Yes, all of it. Yes, we are wired for guilt, and we have to remind ourselves, no, it's okay. This is also how I take care of myself.
I really liked your comment earlier about the messages that you get, the email that you're subscribed to, where you get suggestions on how to honor people.
Yeah,
Alexa asked, "How would you suggest someone get out of a place where they are all encompassed by their grief?"
yeah. Well, and I think we need to move slowly, right? It's like when we are all encompassed in our grief, it's we need to require of ourselves to slow down our pace, which is not, in these times, this is not our normal speed. We are used to going, going, going. So sometimes it's literally, let me just, for the next moment, right? How can I just, the next moment, what is the next moment? I just want to, today, if I'm all encompassing grief, maybe a goal for myself is like, all I want to, today I want to shower. And like, that's my goal. Maybe I want to change the sheets on my bed, or I want to sit down and eat a meal. Like my recommendation is to pull back your goals for yourself to minute things. Maybe I want to just walk outside to the mailbox, or I want to send a text message to one person to say, hi, just wanted to let you know I'm thinking of you.
Hmm.
Right. And it helps us when we're in grief to think about others.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
And we won't be able to cover every comment
We're
or
seeing a lot.
question. There's a lot,
Mm-hmm.
lot going
Thank
on down there,
you.
which is amazing. Julie will be going back through the comments later and answering what she can.
I think we can do a few more.
Yeah.
This one's from Nana. Julie, how to support grieving friends when you are far away from them? I would like to be just now near Derek and Steve, but it's not possible. I'm only able to show my love.
Yeah, I know. And might I suggest for your consideration that perhaps that's enough? I know that we often want to do grand gestures, and that's beautiful because it comes from such a beautiful place. But don't think for a second that when we are sending our love, whether that's to Derek and Steve, whether that's to our family members, whether that's to Kevin and Andrea, whether whoever that might be, don't think for like everything is energy, right? It's like what we're putting out there, love, compassion is all energy. That matters. That is a way to show support.
Do we have one final question?
Yes, we'll take this one from Natalie.
From Natalie, how can we best honor Esther's memory? I want to do something meaningful.
I know. And I don't have your answer on that one. And on purpose, I don't have your answer. I love that because I've thought about this exact same thing myself, and it's like I wanna encourage you to come up. Whoever asked this beautiful question, and I know whoever asked it is not alone in asking that. I want to ask us all to consider what feels right for us, right? And how we are going to individually perhaps um, memorialize her and show what she meant to us. I don't have your answer on that one. I want you to go inside and figure that out. There's no wrong way to do it. And that's what I will say. We're all looking for what we think is the right way. There's no right way.
Yeah, I feel like that question kind of encompasses all of this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so individual, right? And so unique. And let it be. Let it be. Because because there's where the real ripple effect actually matters. Because let's be honest, if every single one of us on this live or replay, if we all did the same thing,
Sure.
then, that ripple would have less impact than all of us going out and doing our own little things in our own special ways, or our small things. Yeah.
Well, thank you all so much for joining us. And
Thank
Julie,
you.
thank you so much for your beautiful words today.
I think everybody really appreciated it from the comments.
Yeah, and anybody watching this as a replay, please leave your comments and questions, and we will certainly check them out.
Yes.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye, everybody. Love you all.
Thank you, Julie.
Bye.
All we need is a place to be and a few good friends for some company. If you'd like to stay, you don't have to leave. We'll leave the lights on and the door unlocked. If you drop on by, you don't have to knock. We're happy to share whatever we've got.